Hey again, everyone. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, ready to break down a week 10 and wrap up the big week in college football. Probably the most impactful, maybe entertaining, and important weekend of college football. Great to see everybody on the line. We will get to your comments, your questions, your debate topics, as we like to say in the live chat. Of course, we will take your calls tonight. Of course. That's why I'm here. I've told you guys this a number of times. It holds true every time. This is what I enjoy doing more than anything else. There is so much I need to get to, so much I need to do to build out this platform, to build out this vision, to complete the mission, to build out the vision. Marketing, sales, social media, branding, all this other stuff. But the reason we're here is to talk college football. So this is the reason I do this. This is the reason I quit my job. This is the reason I'm here all the time, full throttle, full time to talk college football with you. This is what I love to do more than anything else. Talk directly with you, watch the games, preview the games, talk the games, watch more football. All right, 860-325-3687. In particular, I'm going to run down the rankings, give you my thoughts on the two polls that I never look at. I released, of course, this morning my top 25 that actually makes sense. And for the first time, just basically as kind of a spell check type approach, I just wanted to make sure, because there has been a time or two over the course of a number of years, if you're a one-man band like me and don't have a big research department where in going through the standings and listing out the teams, and there's 130 teams in college football that I've made an oversight. So I just wanted to look at the polls to be like, oh, I missed Alabama. Oops. So anyway, I just checked out the polls for the first time, I think all season. When people talk about, oh, this team's number 1, or what do you think about this team being number 8? I don't check out the polls. But I did today, and I've got them right in front of me. So we're going to check out the rankings because, of course, they're fun. They're fun to argue about. They're fun to get different people's thoughts and perspective on it. But do they matter? No, they don't matter. When the College Football Playoff Selection Committee comes out with their first rankings, those will matter. I wish it wasn't like that. I wish it wasn't like that. I wish mine mattered, but they don't. But it's fun. I will get to the Super Chat contribution in just a second as soon as I get my eyes on and I can see who that is. Maybe I should do that right now. Ryan, thank you so much for the Super Chat contribution. That is so much appreciated. Let me get that to the screen. Ryan's caught the vision. He understands what it takes. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So we're going to run down the college football rankings. We're going to look at the games. If you have anything in additional that you want to get out of me concerning the games that we saw throughout Saturday and, of course, Friday night with BYU, with a huge win for them in their most difficult, on paper, most difficult game. On paper, most difficult game. It wasn't on the field, on the blue turf. 51-17 over Boise State, and a backup quarterback for the Broncos. And also the Miami win over NC State. We had a whole lot of fun doing an instant analysis live call-in show on the Miami channel after the Canes 44-41 win over NC State. And it was interesting to hear back from Canes fans right after the game because so many people were very excited about the win, and absolutely, it was an exciting game, and it was a well-played game by one De'Ara King. He was on fire, and we will at some point talk about the improved passing game, downfield passing game by De'Ara King. Not necessarily tonight, but throughout the week as we focus on the Canes. They're coming up against Virginia Tech on the road Saturday, noon game on ESPN2. But to hear the division between the Miami fans and how many were elated, and I think a lot of those people weren't necessarily reviewing the play on the field or where the team should be progressing. They were more excited about just, we were down 10 in the fourth quarter, and we came back and won. So it's one thing to be excited about the game and seeing an exciting game in a game that you almost lost, that you pulled out, and to be excited about that, just the survival excitement versus the, okay, let's step back for a second and see how well did we play or not play tonight, and should I be satisfied with that? So that was a whole lot of fun. So if you miss any of the live streams, I say this all the time, and I'll say it right now. If you jump in late, of course, you may jump into a live stream that we have going for an hour or 2 hours, and you jump in a half hour into it. Just wait for the video to post, and you can jump on in, and you can catch the time that you missed. And so the Miami channel's there. Please subscribe. The Ohio State channel as well. Please subscribe there. All right, let's dive into some comments, and keep in mind that the phone lines are open. And Ryan, once again, appreciate the Super Chat contribution. Good to see everybody on the line. Starting with Johnny Bays, Notre Dame's #1. Notre Dame is not #1, but you certainly have every right in the world, Johnny Bays, after that game last night and the undefeated season thus far, to say we're #1. I have no issue with that. No issue. That's the best win in college football this year. It's not even that close. The wins over Georgia by Florida and Alabama are impressive, and they were the best wins up until last night. Not necessarily the best performance, but the best win on the table, on the board this season in college football belongs to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And until somebody beats Alabama or Ohio State, it's going to stay that way. I can't think of any other win in college football that's going to be as important or impressive, not necessarily from a performance standpoint, but again, who did you beat? So Johnny Bays, I know you're mighty proud and happy. You should be. Texas A&M fan, good to see you. Believes A&M can beat Notre Dame. Mr. HD, what a great week of college football. And our guy right here, the voice of college football, to break it all down for us. Fire! Thank you, Mr. HD. Appreciate that. Snake Spence, go Bucks. Cheryl, good to see you. Cheryl is the unofficial best moderator in college football. She shows up just all the time. And as soon as I say that, Cheryl, please don't feel like you need to be here all the time. You don't. And if you'd like to take a break at times, you certainly don't have to be Miss Moderator all the time. But we've got about 7 or 8 moderators. Cheryl, she's at the top of the list, doing a heck of a job for us. So thank you so much for that. We got David here. Again, we've got Ryan, Buckeyes fan. Good to see you. Ohio State, 8 AP natties. Notre Dame tapped that arse. Clemson arse. Notre Dame. Yes. Sure. Michael is here as well. We've got Ray on the line. I don't sleep. You look like you just walked off the set of The Walking Dead. Do I look that bad? Is it looking that? Man. Quite the compliment from Ohio State, 8 AP natties. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. I'm looking rather chipper today and youthful and all those things. But to be honest, no, I didn't sleep much last night. David Greenshield, K. Michael, smash that like button. Thank you, Michael, for reminding everyone of that. That is key. Smash the like button. Jeff Lynn's ELO 2022 tour. I have seen enough. I have Alabama, Ohio State for the national championship game. I did as well. In reviewing the games over the weekend, in addition to Notre Dame winning its biggest game in forever, Indiana did as well. That's got to be the biggest Indiana win in forever. even a team like Maryland beating Penn State on the road, a team that beat them 59-0 last year, a team that was a top 10 preseason selection, a team that has beaten them the last 3 years. Penn State 136, Maryland 3. I was thinking about doing a video, whether they be separate videos or all in one video. You guys, let me know if you're interested in this. Trying to figure out when was the last time this particular team had a win this big. For Notre Dame, go back through history. When was the last time Notre Dame notched a win as big as the one last night? Maryland. Doesn't seem like a huge win, but yeah, for them to go to Penn State and win. Biggest win for Maryland since, I'll figure it out. Indiana, biggest win. Michigan, they beat Michigan for the first time in 33 years. Biggest win for Indiana since. Anybody else out there with a huge win that, I guess that would be about it. .503 JM. Go Ducks. Nice win for the Ducks in week 1 against Stanford. Jeff is telling us King played so well for Miami. We were lucky he was on his A game. Yeah. He had to be that good. Cheryl says the Buckeyes need some work to be that elite team to even play in postseason. They do. But they are certainly capable. J.R. Williams, it's so bad at Penn State. James Franklin and his coaches are recruiting the Amish to play at Penn State. Could see a few more beards under the helmets in future seasons, you're telling us. Okay. Ray, Miami all depressed because Notre Dame is number 1 in the ACC. Jeff back on the line. Mark, be objective. Miami fans were upset about the D and the secondary in particular. Also, Miami needs a solid running game. Be objective, or maybe the objective Miami fans. Okay. Yeah, I could see that across the board. NC State's a top 50 team. They were missing their starting quarterback. Based on my evaluation, they've got a good tight end. They have one really capable wide receiver, Akeezy. Is there a Z there? There's a K and a Z and a Emeka Ezizi. I believe is how you pronounce his name. Number 86. Bam Knight's a really good back. But they don't have waves of players. They don't have waves of players that can hit you from all over the place. You need to concentrate on Akeezy and on Bam Knight. And they were still able to put up 41. Michael, college football still waiting for the wrench. Still waiting for the wrench. What am I missing there? Please explain. College football still waiting for the wrench. Does that have something to do with the Boilers? Man, am I just being blonde here? Reasonable Gump, just checking to see if my name is blue yet. Craig Cole, Mark, love the job you do. Live from Australia, live from Australia. I like Indiana and the points versus Ohio State. Buckeyes play Maryland this week. I don't know what the point spread is going to be, but I would think Indiana, Ohio State. I believe they're playing in Bloomington this year. They played in Columbus last year. I think, might be wrong. Wouldn't you think that the Buckeyes would be a 17 to 21 point favorite? David. You know, some of the ladies like the shadow. Some do, some don't. I've had to make those adjustments in life. Tunde, how you feeling about the Ducks game? Who does so in addition to the college football rankings, we're going to look at the next week. I don't know who the Ducks are playing. We're going to give it a look. I have not looked at the schedule for next week. There you go, Paul. Now, there it is, Paul. Mark, I need to start using your Amazon link. I forgot about it. That's it. And I know that it's very easy to forget. I would do the same thing. If I watched some guy on YouTube and I really liked his channel and he was constantly harping on use the Amazon link, use the Amazon link. It's the same experience. It doesn't cost you a penny. I would be like, yeah, I'm going to do that. But I get it. I would forget it too. I would most likely forget it unless I thought, okay, got to grab that link, got to put it somewhere that when I'm on my laptop or on my phone and I'm going to see it, I'm going to remember it when I do some shopping. Paul, thank you so much for the reminder. It is very important. And this is something that I got to build out. In building out this channel, a lot of the things that I'm going to be doing going forward to put food in my mouth and in others is not going to necessarily, unfortunately, be related to college football. I'm going to have to spend some time maybe on the affiliate marketing side of this. So I'm going to have to learn a whole lot more about how to do that and if there are layers to it. All I know right now is I've got an Amazon link and it's available and it's running. And if people use it, then I don't want to say a whole lot of money comes my way, but it could be substantial. We passed 22,000 subscribers on the main channel here today. 22,000. John's going to try to hang. The reason we go late on Sunday night, otherwise I would go at another time, is that I do a 6 o'clock show on SG1 College Football, and basically nobody shows up. I think we were up to like 11 people online. We've got 44 online right now. Last night we were pushing 200, and that's a typical Saturday night. We get a good crowd on Saturday night of 160 to 200. But I'm doing some live call-in shows just like this over on SD1 College Football, and few people know about it. So head on over. It's every Friday and every Sunday. Sunday and Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. But, John, the reason we're on so late is this is the night my boy comes over to spend some time with me and hang on a Sunday night. So by the time he walks out the door, midnight works out perfect. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Mark Rogers, the voice of college football. This is Dave Greenshield. How you doing, sir?
David, I'm doing just fine. I've got some information for you.
Go ahead, shoot.
16-4 against the spread yesterday. 16-4.
You went 16-4?
I did. Go look at the Patreon page.
Wow.
Folks, sign up on Patreon. Search Mark Rogers TV. 16-4 against the spread.
Well, I did tell you I took one of your picks. I took the Florida pick, okay? So I did win with that, but man, if I'd have known that, I could have paid rent for the next, 5 months.
Well, shoot, if I would have known it. So we hope we're back on the winning track.
Well, I will continue to follow the Mark Rogers Patreon page and follow those picks because I need to make some dough. So
I appreciate your support over there, and it's great to have you. And as you know, I'm always looking for your requests and recommendations over there. Just want to make everyone happy.
Sure, appreciate it. Hey, I want to give you a call. I want to expand a little bit upon, first of all, the Buckeyes and what I saw last night in the second half. I know that we were talking about, the euphoria of that Notre Dame victory last night, that I think might be their biggest victory since 1993 when they beat that great Florida State team with Charlie Ward.
Yep.
But, I watched. You said you didn't watch much of the second half of the Buckeye game against Rutgers last night?
Yeah, there were just too many other games that were more competitive. I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I got to be honest with you. I was hoping that it would. I caught a little bit of it, and I was kind of watching the Clemson Notre Dame game myself because I knew that was going to be the more competitive game, obviously. But just watching them in the second half, Buck, I think there are some concerns here for this Ohio State team just going forward on defense. The one thing that I was concerned about coming into the season is the secondary. Because as I told you in the Buckeye call, I thought we had the best secondary in the country last year. I thought Okuda was actually the best corner in the country last year, and probably should have gotten the Thorpe Award, in my opinion. And plus, Fuller was a very good safety, and Arnett was in the first round. So, I thought we were really situated there pretty well there a year ago. And I just, even though I like Sean Wade, his secondary had some issues, possibly at the safety position and maybe at the other corner positions. And Sean Wade has not played great football this year and looked like a top-notch number one corner, so far. So I just think if we face a team with a quarterback and some receivers, well, like a lot of teams in football, but I just really think we could, they're going to cause some problems against us. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, again, I didn't see last night's game, but just considering that sounds like it was something similar to Penn State, I was concerned. I was concerned more with Sevyn Banks than Sean Wade. Sean Wade got hit with the big plays by Jahan Dotson, but I thought he had good coverage. He had good coverage on most of those plays, and he just didn't play the ball as well as the receiver, which is a lot to ask of the corner, and they were exceptional plays downfield. Sevyn Banks just looked lost, timid.
Yeah.
There were times, and I may have made this statement to you, and this was more than once. I just don't want to pick out one play, but this happened several times where his positioning on the field just didn't even make sense. And I made that comment to our Ohio State guys during our live show, and they reassured me that they're positioning those guys on every play. But there were a couple times down in the red zone where his positioning on the field just didn't even make any sense.
Sure. Yeah, I thought that he did not necessarily play. He played an all right game last night. I thought he looked okay. The safety play last night was not really good. Hooker did not look good last night. I'm a little bit concerned about that. I do like Josh Proctor back there, who I think could be very good. But I don't think that this defense is going to be like the defensive debacle of 2 years ago. Because I think this is, no way this is going to be like the 70-something ranked defense like it was a couple of years ago. Because I still like their front seven. I think the D-line is really good, even though I don't think that, obviously there's not a Bosa or a Chase Young up there, which is tough to do. Those are like generational players. But I still think the D-line is really good. And I think the linebackers are solid. Although I don't think that there's like a really standout guy at the linebacker position. I think that they're solid. So overall, I like the front seven. It's just that the secondary is just my overall concern going forward. Just bottom line. Don't you think?
Well, I'm surprised that that's what the case is. I agree with you, but I'm just surprised. I wouldn't have guessed that going into the offseason with no injuries. Now, I knew that the secondary was going to be thin, but I thought our front line was going to be, the front line guys would be more than solid, would be really good. I thought that there could be some issues if Ohio State got hit with injuries.
Right. Well, they still have the benefit of the D-line of rotating in a lot of people, and they've been better at defensive tackle than I think they thought they might be. And the DNs are good, but as I said, just because there's not a Bosa or a Chase Young, but they're still solid. And like I said, I think our linebackers are still pretty good. But this game this week, I tell you what, this Maryland team. Did you watch any of the Maryland Penn State game yesterday?
I saw the entire Maryland-Minnesota game. I saw maybe 10 or 15 plays.
Okay. Well, to our dude McD Sports, I think Maryland is looking pretty good.
Absolutely.
They dominated up front. They got like 7 sacks. The younger brother Tua looked really good at quarterback. And I tell you what, they have an absolute stud at receiver in Jarrett, who's going to be a player. And actually, they've got, I think they have another good receiver as well. So that's going to be interesting this week, going up there. I mean, and playing them. I don't expect to see what I saw 2 years ago. At least I hope I don't see what I saw 2 years ago when, we barely held on and they had that pass in the end zone on the 2-pointer to beat us late. But I think they're going to be able to move the ball and score some points on our defense, just bottom line. Now, I don't think, bottom line, they're not going to be able to outscore us, but I think they can score some points and make it interesting. I don't know what your early read on it is.
That is my early read as well, based on what I saw against Penn State and what everyone's telling me against Rutgers, and just to see the score against Rutgers. And again, we've had enough conversations that I think you understand that I temper my concern with this caliber of a team in looking at the final score when I know that the game was well in hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You could have a 49-27 result that was 28-20 at halftime and was a game, right. And then you get some room late, whereas this was the inverse. Ohio State was up 35-3. They were up 42-9. Most of the points were scored. The great majority of points, actually, all the touchdowns were scored in what I would consider to be garbage time. They weren't going to come back from 35-3. So, in a sense, all the touchdowns were meaningless.
That's true. And they did score a special teams touchdown, and they ran a lot of crazy trick plays. And I know the Buckeyes did also have some second-string players in there as well. But nevertheless, it was just, and some of that missed tackles did rear its ugly head again, as we saw, a couple of years ago when they had those issues. So that wasn't good either. But I think that I think they better be prepared this week. I think Maryland has some talent that can cause them some issues. I tell you what, this Eastern Division is crazy, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Well, Penn State and Michigan are supposed to be the best teams and the big challengers, but now we're looking at Indiana and Maryland. Unless something changes drastically, which I don't think it will, we're already, unfortunately, we're suffering through a very short college football season. So 3 games into it is 3 games into an 8-game schedule. So
sure.
We are almost, we're going to be halfway through the schedule after this weekend's games. So it's pretty easy to see that, again, unless things change drastically. Now, that doesn't mean that Penn State and Michigan won't be jumping up at different times during the season and playing up to their potential and maybe knocking down some of these teams. I expect that to happen. But right now, Indiana looks like the second best team. I don't know if they're the second best team, but it looks like they will finish with the second best record in the division. And yeah, I'm going to be as fascinated as anything to see this Maryland-Indiana game as well.
Yeah, I think Penix. I mean, and there's another team with a quarterback and some skilled players that can cause problems. Obviously Hillier is a really good receiver. I always forget the running back. Stevie Scott, the running back, is a really good player too. So I mean, they got some talent around Penix too, to where they can cause some problems. And you know what? Tom Allen's doing a good job there. I mean, was the last good Indiana team, Mark? What was that? Was that in the late '80s with Anthony Thompson? Was that the last really good Indiana team?
That was the last team that in 1987, the team that beat Ohio State the last time,
and they beat Michigan.
And they beat Michigan. So we don't want 1987 to be repeated all over again. But that team played Michigan State extremely late in the season, basically as a de facto Big Ten championship game, and lost to Michigan State. And that was the Michigan State team with Lorenzo White and Percy Snow that went on and won the Rose Bowl. But that's
Andre Rison.
Andre Rison. Good call. So that was the last Indiana team that had any chance of winning a Big Ten championship. And the last bowl game they went to until just a few years ago was in 1993.
Okay.
And they didn't go to a bowl game for almost 30 years.
Okay. Did they go to one at the end of the Terry Hefner era? I thought they went to one game, maybe a bowl game at that time.
Well,
could be wrong,
yeah, my addition of the years might be a little wrong. I think it 07, so they went about 24 years without a bowl game. I'm going to try to look this up with one hand right now. But yeah, I believe
you're
07.
Right. Okay, I was going to say 06, 07, somewhere in that time frame. I think they got like a 7-4. Although I think that was like an 11 game. Were we still in an 11 game, or were we still in a 12 game season there? I think it was an 11 game season. They might have gone like 6-5.
Yeah. Yeah, they were playing 11. The Buckeyes didn't play a 12 game, except for that odd 2002 season. Strangely enough, that they ended up winning a national championship where they played 13 consecutive games without a bye, which I just think is crazy. As you know, except for some of those kickoff classic seasons, that Ohio State didn't play a regular 12-game season until my goodness. It must have been 2011. 2010 they went 11-1 in 2010. Must have been 2010. I think they went I think they went 11-2 after the Rose Bowl in 09. 08 they went 10-2 in the regular season in 08. 07, the team that lost to LSU, they went 11-1. You're right. So that was the first one, because the 06 team, I think, just went 11-0. Maybe no. I think they might have went 12-0 as well before they lost to Florida. Maybe it was 05 was the last. Now that season, I know for sure they went 9-2 before they beat Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl in 05.
Right, they went 10-2.
So that might have been the last 11-game season.
Okay. First year I watched them, Mark, I have to say, 86, they played an extra game.
Yep.
Because they played the Kickoff Classic. They actually played Alabama that year in the Kickoff Classic.
Yep.
I remember that game. Yeah, they lost the top one, 16-10.
Yes,
16-10.
Yep.
Yeah. Two future Hall of Famers in that game, Chris Carter and Derek Thomas.
Absolutely.
Both played in that game. But yeah. Yeah, I think the East overall is going to be interesting. I mean, I think that right now Penn State, that season is looking to totally spiral out of control there. And boy, I've not seen a Franklin team this bad in a while.
No, this is the worst team that he's had, it would appear, although he had 2 7-6 teams when he first got there. Bill Mallory's 1993 team, as I mentioned, and I was going to spit out the rest here. I knew that they lost to Virginia Tech in a bowl game. It was the Independence Bowl in 1993. And then Bill Lynch was the head coach in 07 when they made it back to a bowl game and lost to Oklahoma State in the Insight Bowl.
Okay. All right.
Indiana has not won a bowl game since 1991, the Copper Bowl against Baylor.
Oh, wow. The old Copper Bowl, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Mallory did a good job there. I mean, he had some solid teams, and that was at a time when the Big Ten was super competitive in the 80s and into the early 90s, too. So, he was doing a pretty good job there.
Sure.
I remember we went up there and played him in 96 in our his last game as in Indiana. We struggled to win that game. I remember Sinkus picked up a fumble when Andy Katzenberg stripped the ball out of the quarterback's hands, and we had to survive a really close game up there. So
that was a memorable game for me because my wife went into labor about an hour or two after that game was over.
Well, are you serious?
Yes, she did. So I had my son the night of that game, actually the next morning, about 8 a.m.
There you go. John Cooper's first and only Rose Bowl appearance.
Exactly. Yes.
Hard to believe 13 years he coached. He went to one Rose Bowl. Just, I don't want to get on that road again. But, I will say this, though. I think this is going to be an interesting game this weekend. I think that, I still think we're 2 scores better than pretty much everybody in the Big Ten. I'm still confident enough to say that. I'll tell you what, I think Michigan's, by the way, are they going to make a definite decision on Michigan, Wisconsin this week? Or have you heard anything about that? Or when do you think we might know whether we're going to have a game up in Ann Arbor?
Sure. So, excuse me, somebody commented in the live chat. I don't know if they have any information or they're just speculating about there being an announcement tomorrow. But they have, they will call some of these games as late as Friday. So I don't have a guesstimate on that.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's going to be interesting because doesn't Wisconsin have to play that certain minimal amount of games to qualify?
Yes.
For either a play. Okay.
I thought it was 6.
Okay, was it 6? I didn't know whether it was 6 or 5. That was going to be my next question. I wasn't sure on that.
I thought it was 6 out of 8.
Okay.
So Wisconsin's.
Okay. And they've already lost.
Yeah, they're running out of time.
Right. Yeah, I had heard that there's a chance if they play, they could have Merckx back this week, which would be huge.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think that's going to be interesting to see if they get that one in. I still have, I know they've had more cases up there, but, them putting off that Nebraska game, that still bothers me considering they had enough players to play. I just have a feeling they didn't want to play Nebraska with a 4th-string quarterback. Not to say that they couldn't have won, but still,
Yep.
That's still kind of that decision, It's interesting that they didn't hold it against them that way. So, all right, Mark. Well, I'm going to continue to follow your picks. Good week, by the way. Excellent job this week on the picks.
Yeah, I as you could tell with my enthusiasm, I was ready after a couple of rough ones to spit that out to you.
Yeah. So I got to take you to Vegas, Mark. Maybe you can help me make some dough here.
Let me prove it for a while. All right, David. Appreciate it.
All right, Mark. You take care now.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Our man, David Greenshield, talking up the Buckeyes. Ohio State fans, I think, are generally, based on the feedback that I see in the live chat and in the calls, I think are concerned in a reasonable way to say, we don't think we just have it made and we're perfect and we can just slough off any issues that we see on the field. But at the same time, we're not going to blow it out of proportion and worry ourselves to death over it. The Buckeyes are capable. We knew that the secondary was losing depth. And then I made that comment to David based on my evaluation, at least, of where I thought the secondary was. I thought it was going to be more of a depth issue than it would be right out of the gate. The first line of defense in the secondary would be an issue for Ohio State. And again, the linebackers are capable. It's the best linebacking crew that Ohio State has had since Raekwon McMillan left, and they really suffered there in 2017 and 18. Really saw it in the Oklahoma game in 2017, the Iowa game, trying to keep up with Noah Fant and Luke Hawkinson, and a lot in the passing game. And people are bringing up, with the Buckeyes taking on Maryland this Saturday, it brings to light the game that Ohio State fans had to suffer through 2 years ago at College Park, 52-51, where Ohio State basically lucked out on a 2-point play, did not make a play, didn't have a pass breakup, put pressure on the quarterback. It was just a misconnection to the receiver in the end zone. And that game, Ohio State's linebacking crew in particular and safeties had all sorts of trouble trying to get a hold of Anthony McFarland, who ran for almost 300 yards in that game. I think he ran for 298. Am I just forgetting? That number seems ridiculously high, but for some reason, I think Anthony McFarland, Booger McFarland's boy, ran for 298 in that game. And Dwayne Haskins had to throw for 500 yards. and Ohio State prevailed. And then, of course, put it all together against Michigan the next week. And, you know, all was good within a few weeks. Beat Michigan, win the Big Ten championship, win the Rose Bowl. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark. How you doing? George.
I'm good, George. What's going on, man?
Well, we got over the hump. We beat Georgia after 3 years, right on schedule.
Did I not talk to you last night?
Not last night.
I haven't talked to you since the big win?
I called you Friday.
Friday,
yeah.
So I have not heard from you since the big win. Congratulations.
Yeah, that took a lot out of me, the big win. I was so satiated with matter of fact, I fell asleep. I drank too much beer. I only caught half the Notre Dame game. I went to bed.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, it was impressive.
When you live on the West Coast, and if you start drinking beer at 9 in the morning when those 12 o'clock in the afternoon games come on, it's really hard to make it for the late games.
Yeah, I would think so. That's a long day to try to pull yourself together.
Yeah, and I'm drinking 9% IPAs,
Woo!
so it's like having a glass of wine or something. Yeah, I'm so lucky. I drink this beer. It's 9% IPA, heavily hopped, 90 IBUs. Nobody will take one of my beers. They take one sip, and they give it back to me like friends or anyone that comes over. They bring their own beer after that. Yep.
So, yeah.
Anyway, I could talk all night about the Florida game or all the other games.
Well, we don't.
Yeah. That hit that they put on Kyle Pitts. I hope the home office in the SEC suspends that guy for 3 or 4 games or some kind of punishment. You just can't do that in 2020.
Well, he had to take the penalty of the targeting and leave the game.
He's lucky he didn't break his neck. He knocked himself out.
Well, I know that, but just because the result of the play in terms of injury can't dictate how the judgment on the actual hit. If you follow me, you can't say, well, these guys got hurt really bad, therefore it was a really bad hit, so we're going to penalize him even more. No, it's all about how bad the hit was. He got penalized for targeting. He had to leave the game. He will have to come back and miss the first half of whatever game they're playing next.
Yeah. When I talked to you on Friday, I told you we would win because of offense, defense, coaching, and special teams, and that's exactly how it went. That's funny, huh?
Yeah, it was not close. It was not close. Dan Mullen's got to be feeling a whole lot better.
Yeah. I told you we beat each other 3 years in a row for the last 12 years. And before that, I think we had like almost 10 in a row. So hopefully, I don't want to go back to trading 3-3. I try to watch Kirby Smart's post-game interviews. They're absolutely unwatchable. Have you ever tried to digest one of those post-game interviews? He's long.
I've seen bits and pieces, but I've not sat gun to gun. No.
It's just it must really irritate the Georgia fans. He has no emotion, nothing. He never answers a question. He keeps saying the defense should have played better, and he thinks the offense did good every week, week after week after week. Uncle Lou's pulling his hair out.
Oh, I bet he is, but Kirby Smart needs a quarterback. Needs to figure that out. That's a pretty bad deal that he can't get that solved.
It's mind-boggling, really. Texas A&M, I notice there's people in the chats, no matter what channel I go to, they are just full of themselves over beating Georgia by 3 in the last second of the game. I mean, Florida, beating Florida. I mean, congratulations. You beat us on the last second of the game with a field goal. But all our players were playing out of position. We were missing, just like Georgia was missing a lot of defenders. We had people all in the wrong spots because of the COVID thing. And then we put them all back in the right spot for Georgia, so we got a little bit better, and for Missouri. But it almost makes me want to hope they get knocked off now. Who can knock them off? They got LSU, they got Auburn. Who else they got?
Who's going to knock off Texas A&M? I don't know. Those are the two. The Auburn would be the best team that they've got left. They've got Tennessee this week, and yeah, it's only Ole Miss and LSU and Auburn. That's it. Those four.
Nothing against A&M, that if they want to make it personal, I'm going to cheer against them. I don't mind if I wish they'd get to the beat Alabama, take Alabama's spot, and come play us in the SEC title game. I'd like to play them again.
Well, I don't think Alabama's going to allow that to happen. So they think that they've got a path to the college football playoff, possibly.
Hard to believe. I've never seen Jimbo Fisher do anything in his life except when he had that crab leg stealing quarterback, Jameis Winston. I think it was Winston that won those games more than Jimbo Fisher's proficiency as a coach. We'll find out soon enough at some point in this season.
We are going to do that. He's got it going, though, at Texas A&M. We'll see how good they are, though. When they matched up against Alabama, they still weren't within 4 touchdowns.
I think it's bizarre the Pac-12 just started yesterday. I have a hard time taking it serious or even wasting my time watching it because they can't get anywhere. They can't go to the playoffs, can they?
They could if they get selected. Sure, if they go 9-1, they could make the playoff.
Is there enough time for them to play 10 games?
Texas A&M?
No. The Pac-12.
Oh, the Pac-12 is only playing 7. They're playing 6, and then they're playing a championship weekend for 7 total.
That'll qualify them 7 games.
Well, there's no hard and fast rule. Nobody's come out and said you need to play X number of games. It's whatever the College Football Playoff Selection Committee determines.
Okay, I didn't know that.
It's whatever they believe is right. They have all the power.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, what game are we missing here? What other great games were there? But while we try to think of the games, I must say the statistics that they are putting up there and showing that Kyle Trask has are truly mind-boggling. I'm watching the games and I can't believe those statistics have added up that fast. He's broke so many records, and we had Tebow and Warfel and all these other Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks, and he's already beaten almost everybody's records.
Yeah, so he's got
4 games, 5 games.
Yep, so he's got 22 touchdown passes, I see. And because I was just looking at, actually, I was putting together a little Heisman list for a video, and he's on my list, and I was looking up everyone's stats. I think he's got 22 TDs and 3 picks. So if that's only in 5 games, are they 4-1? Is that 5 games?
Yeah, 4-1.
They've only played 5. So my goodness, he would be on pace to throw in a full 13-game season with a bowl game. And if they go to an SEC championship game, 14 games, he's going to throw 60 touchdown passes.
He was on pace to have 69 for the year if he would have played the full season like Burrow did last year and the championships.
Okay.
It would, just projecting it out. Yeah. And Burrow threw 66. That's how good he's doing. And Mullen turned
60.
him off on the second half. Huh?
60. Burrow threw 60. 6-0.
Okay, 60. Yeah, I read some article today. They said he would have had a few more than Burrow if he kept that pace up. Dan turned off the offense on the second half last week. We had so many players with little dings and injuries that he just quit running the full offense. Everybody noticed that. Florida slowed down and changed their pace and quit bombing away on them. So anything can happen if you get ahead and ease off a little bit.
All right,
Pickens
George.
was out.
We had a few calls coming
Yeah.
in, so I'm going to grab those.
All right. Have a great weekend. Talk to you guys later.
Appreciate it, George. Go Gators.
Go Gators. Bye, Mark.
Our guy, George. This is the biggest win that the Gators have had since I've known George. Huge win. So I want to get through as many questions and comments as possible. So we got a super chat contribution from Ryan, who asked about Justin Fields' legacy and if he needed to win the Heisman or a national championship for his legacy. Well, most people don't think that deeply about these things, meaning it's all about Super Bowls, national championships, Heisman trophies, whatever sport it is. It's about winning, either being recognized as the best, which is an MVP or a Heisman trophy, or a national championship. I think more deeply about college football than that. And therefore, if you asked me, for example, Mark, name the best 20 quarterbacks of the last 20 years, and I came up with a list, it wouldn't necessarily look similar. It would look similar, but wouldn't exactly fall in line with something that you're going to find on the internet that's clickbait, that's going to list all the guys that won national championships and Heisman trophies, and just that's the default. No, I'm actually going to observe, go back to my observation of those quarterbacks and my evaluation of how good they are. And we may see some quarterbacks on my list that went 8-4 for particular teams. And I just thought that they were that good. They just didn't have the team around them. So we're in a very gold medal minded culture. So yes, Justin Fields, for the average college football fan or the person out there just observing sports, to be thinking about and to remember Justin Fields. Yes, his name's going to be repeated and brought up continuously within college football conversations down the road if he wins a Heisman Trophy and or a national championship. If he fails to do that, he's not going to be brought up much. How many people bring up Terrell Pryor unless they're Ohio State fans? Not very many people. Now, big college football fans will at times because they remember Ohio State, Terrell Pryor. He was a big prospect, number one quarterback in high school football, because there was a lot surrounding the hype coming to Ohio State. And then he had issues, obviously, at the end of his stay at Ohio State that led to Jim Tressel's demise and then off into the NFL. So some of those periphery items with Terrell Pryor makes him more memorable to the average college football fan. But just based on his play at Ohio State and his accomplishments, I think they're substantial. Terrell Pryor won the MVP at 2 BCS bowl games, the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl. His teams went 10-3, finished in the top 10, went to the Fiesta Bowl. Then his next team won the Rose Bowl, finished in the top 5 in the country. And then the last one came within that close of playing for a national championship, won a Sugar Bowl, finished 12-1. So Terrell Pryor, to me, had an exceptional college career, and his teams were very accomplished. But everybody's focused, hyper-focused on the national championship and the Heisman Trophy. So to make that comparison and to think beyond just the periphery or just beyond the people that dig and delve like me, for most people, yes, Justin Fields, to answer your question, Ryan, to cement his legacy as a truly great quarterback, I don't agree with it, but needs to win a national championship and or a Heisman Trophy. Michael had commented about Indiana's last bowl game against Utah. I think Michael, I believe you misheard my statement. I knew that Indiana last went to a bowl game in 1993 before a big drought. So I knew they played Virginia Tech, and I thought it was the Independence Bowl, and it was. And if I really would have thought of, I would have thought of the score. But 1993 against Virginia Tech. And then I knew that they didn't play in another one until 2007. I was almost certain it was the Oklahoma State, and I don't know that I would have come up with the Insight Bowl, but that's what it was. So that was the drought between 93 and 2007. So that's the year I was searching for a few seconds. There was 2007, that they had a drought Indiana in postseason play from 93 to 2007. Yes, I know that I watched every play of Indiana's bowl game 20-16 loss off the top of my head against Utah in 2016, Redbox Bowl, 20-16. That sticks out in my head. Can fact check me on that one. 20-16 doesn't seem quite right, but it's close. That doesn't click in my mind as being exact, but I believe it's close. 20-16, Indiana, Utah, Redbox Bowl in 2016. No, Indiana lost by, I think it was 19-17. They could have kicked a field goal to win the game. Yes, so they lost by 2. I believe it was 19-17. Michigan fans think Urban Meyer's going to go to Ann Arbor. I keep seeing this. I just can't imagine. Texas A&M fan. We're getting better each week. Sign of a good team. The Florida win was the turning point. It certainly seems so. 48-3 against South Carolina. And I know that South Carolina is not very good, but nobody else in the SEC is beating South Carolina anything close to 48-3. Okay, I have lost my place in the chat. Have all of you seen my top 25 that actually makes sense? Any thoughts about that? Leave your comments there. I think I had about 75 the last time I checked, so I'm going to have to get on that. And I'm sure there's a number of names being thrown at me. And we'll check out this weekend's games. It's Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark. It's Bruce in the dock, man.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing all right. I wanted to call first and say before anything else that I really enjoyed your top 25 that actually makes sense video, particularly the part where you gave me a wink halfway through it.
I did. You were my inspiration for rambling on today.
Well, it was good. I mean, I'm not sure if you've gone back and watched or if you're satisfied with it, but hell, all the info you were giving us about the teams, I really enjoyed listening to all of it.
Okay, maybe that'll be my slant. In the future, I just figured, man, 25 teams, and I'm going to have to break down and talk about why this team's ahead of this team and so forth and so on. But as it kind of rolled off my tongue, I thought, okay, well, I can do this. And maybe the video in and of itself was certainly not concise, but that portion of it, because I went on a rant about a bunch of other things, but that portion of it actually going down the top 25 was fairly concise.
Well, I like how you kind of did it, how like a couple teams you like kind of went back to back to back, and then you could just basically sum up those 2 or 3, or like Texas and Oklahoma. You were able to just sum them up at the same time of why they're there, and just kind of move on. And it really gives, again, because it's such a different way than pretty much everyone else does their rankings. I think it's cool to see that.
All right.
But, if I'm the only one that thinks that, then obviously go back to what you were doing.
We'll find out.
But
we'll find out.
I do want to express my appreciation for you heeding my request on that one.
Ask and ye shall receive. There you go.
All right. Let's talk about some of these games here. Starting with, now I just want to make sure I got this right. Indiana outrushed Michigan 118-13.
Yep.
Okay.
I watched almost every play of that game, and Michigan's well, you can see it just from the box score. Their inability to run the ball was just beyond pathetic.
I didn't watch the game, but someone who did told me that even when Indiana had the ball, it looked like basically every single time the quarterback got in trouble, all he had to do was just put the ball in the air and hope someone came down with it. And
yeah, pretty much.
And they pretty much just had that happen, and Michigan was never able to, do anything with that.
I did a Michigan post-game video, and I couldn't find a unit on the team that really performed well. The offensive line couldn't run block. The pass blocking was marginal. It was decent. It was good enough to throw the ball downfield effectively. So they did pass block okay, but the run blocking was atrocious. The running backs, who they're supposed to be 4 deep with 4 capable running backs, even though the run blocking was that pitiful, they should have been able to break tackles and gain something. They all got shut down. All their numbers were horrendous. All of them were like a yard per carry. One receiver stepped up. They did have okay receiver play. All levels of the defense were the secondary is horrendous. The secondary is awful. And the defensive line, I made note in the video that it's almost deflating to watch Michigan play because they're so deflated. They're one of the most unmotivated teams that I've seen recently. They just look beaten. They look shell-shocked. They look like, how is this happening? Why is it happening? What's going to go wrong? They're just kind of deflated and lifeless. Their defensive line kept jumping off sides. Like, this happened like it was such a joke that the announcers were making a joke of it. Like, how is this happening? And they've got a veteran defensive line. Like, these kids are supposed to be NFL prospects, and they've got a veteran defensive line. They all came back from last year's team, and they kept jumping off sides. And the announcers were like, don't they know? Just watch the ball. Like, it was their defensive ends jumping off constantly. And one time, one of them went to the sideline after just jumping offside for like the 3rd or 4th time. And Harbaugh, like, kind of consoled him. And I thought, I'm not the person that typically looks into those things and tries to read them and say, oh, that's the wrong way to approach that. But it just seemed like, really? This guy's a veteran player. He's done it like 3 times, and you're consoling him? You should be ripping him to shreds. It's a sad outfit. It's a pathetic outfit right now.
I'm going to it gives me, I don't make videos or anything, but it gives me a desire to get that clip and put it side by side with the clip of Nick Saban spanking A.J. McCarron that one time.
Yeah.
Just a comparison of how these 2 coaches deal with stupid decisions on the field.
It seems like Jim Harbaugh he's resigned himself to that. He's just not going to get to the top of the heap. And I think he is a very capable coach that came into a situation that he thought he could fix and had every reason to believe, and just about everybody did as well. And I think I just think he's flustered and frustrated and doesn't know and has figured, I've done the best I can. I've tried to figure this out. They're out recruiting me plus out coaching me. So I don't know where to go now. I don't know. I just don't think I'm going to get there.
The out recruiting part is understandable. I mean, Michigan is, negative 30 degrees 8 months out of the year. Granted, not that Ohio's that much better, but still, it's a lot more difficult to get good players at Michigan than Ohio State. I mean,
sure.
That's just facts. That's understandable, but you getting out coached all the time is not understandable, nor is it forgivable. That's the part I think everyone is just perplexed by. I mean, even I've never been a Jim Harbaugh defender. In fact, I've been quite the opposite for most of it. But even I am trying to figure out how is his coaching this bad? It shouldn't be. I mean, he had a good record at Stanford. And Stanford, of all places, literally the hardest school, Power 5 school to recruit at, because they have to have players actually accepted into the university before they can even make a scholarship offer. I'm not sure if you knew that. They're the only school that has that restriction. So basically, that whole thing about where schools that have higher academic requirements, but just kind of behind the scenes, they just kind of usher the players in the back door. Maybe they wouldn't be able to get into that school if they couldn't throw the ball a country mile. That doesn't happen at Stanford. But so he had a good record there. He was decent in the NFL.
Well, reasonable Gump. I think that you're really shortchanging him. You said pretty good at Stanford and decent in the NFL. I think his tenures at both were borderline great.
I'm just hesitant to use the word great when technically he didn't win anything.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Well, I'm always hesitant to use the term great because it gets thrown around all over the place. And I relate great to Hall of Fame. That's kind of my connection there. If I'm going to say a player's great, I think of them as a Hall of Fame.
Throwing it around here.
Well, I do understand, but pretty deep. So with Stanford, they were winning. So I don't have to tell you that you not only take the record into consideration, but the record versus what the standards are, the expectations at the school. And Stanford for a decade was winning 3 and 4 games a year, and sometimes 0 and 2 games a year. And suddenly he's taking them he's beating USC and going to BCS bowl games. He had a great run at Stanford. And then he goes to the San Francisco 49ers, takes over a team that went 2-14, goes to 3 NFC championship games, and goes to a Super Bowl. And he actually has one of the best winning percentages in the history of the NFL.
I don't really. Yeah, that's one of those technical things, but those kind of percentages tend to work themselves out the longer you're a coach. So
sure.
It's a lot harder to have a really, really high percentage the longer you coach.
Absolutely.
But even, I'm not trying to take away your point or anything. It's well founded, and I admittedly don't. I mean, I'm from Alabama, Mark. I don't care about the NFL, so I would not have known that. You just taught me something, and I'll probably forget it in 30 seconds because I don't care. But the bottom line is, it just seems astounding that the coaching part of it seems to be this bad. All right, but let's move on. I got another padlock stat here, also in the Big Ten. I'm sure you can guess where this is going. Did you know that Maryland did not have a single snap in the red zone against Penn State?
I did not. They scored 5 touchdowns. Okay.
And not one of them were within the red zone.
Wow. Okay.
You want to talk about a secondary being exposed?
Yeah, I didn't see more than 5 or 6 plays in that game, and I think Penn State was on offense for most of it. So maybe I'll binge watch at some point this week, and I'll kind of run through that. Jim Harbaugh, by the way, has the 5th best winning percentage in the history of the NFL. And I know you don't care, but I just wanted to verify my own statement. I wanted to guide shame. Oh shoot, my laptop's flipping out here. Guide Chamberlain, John Madden, who I would have named as number 1 because obviously that's in modern times. And then my laptop's not cooperating with me. It was like Vince Lombardi and somebody else before Harbaugh. Anyway, Harbaugh number 5. So back to Maryland torching Penn State. Yep.
I don't think 0-3 was the start Penn State fans had in mind. But you know what another thing about this to me is weird? So let's go back a few months to when the Big Ten had canceled their season. I watched you and your buddy Steve Days, and now he would repeatedly remind everybody, now I'm not know if there's any truth to this, but remind everybody that even when they were canceled and there was no hope of playing, that Michigan and Ohio State kept practicing the whole time. I'm trying to figure out on my end, I'm like, okay, if Michigan kept practicing the whole time, shouldn't they be that much better than teams like Indiana or Michigan State?
Well, Michigan State in particular. Well, I know Michigan State in particular shut down for a considerable length of time during all of that, whether that be in sometime in August, September. They didn't practice for a couple weeks. I think Indiana also did not practice for a time because of COVID cases. And Rutgers didn't. And they're much improved. I hear you.
Just thought I'd throw that. Yeah. So just thought I'd throw that one out there. All right. Now let's get on. Oh, I'm gonna ask a quick question here. So you remember last year and even the year before when Alabama had like 4 injuries at the linebacker position, plus another couple on the D line and stuff like that.
The year that you won the national championship in 2017.
Right.
Yep.
But in any of those years, was anyone feeling sorry for Alabama? Just yes or no?
Well, I think that it was referenced a number of times by TV personalities, but I can't imagine that there were any college football fans. No.
All right. Where I'm going with this is Florida fan and Clemson fan need to cool it or just get off this injury train excuse list. Okay. Particularly Clemson fan. Well, actually, I am sure you probably watched the whole Notre Dame Clemson game last night.
Yeah, I did.
I'm going to try this once and see if I can get this right. Uyondele was playing out of his mind last night. He carried that entire Clemson offense. I think he threw for like 470-something yards, accounted for most of their touchdowns, but not all of them. I think Clemson rushed less than 40 yards. I'm not so sure that Trevor Lawrence could have done that much better. I think Trevor Lawrence, the one strength he may have had was he would hit the deep, instant score kind of throws a little bit better. But other than that, not having Trevor Lawrence, I don't think is as much of a factor as everyone seems to want to say. They seem to want to. Everyone keeps wanting to say that we're going to put an asterisk behind this. Notre Dame beat Clemson with an asterisk around the beat. Okay, because Clemson beat up and they're missing. You had one guy here last night saying they're missing half their defense. They're playing at half strength. Everyone has injuries, and no one's feeling sorry. Even with all those injuries, you can tell me whether or not you agree with this. But even with all those injuries, Clemson is still more talented than Notre Dame. Okay?
True.
It's not an excuse that you can use to say that Notre Dame only beat us because we're at half strength. Or as our man George is saying, that Texas A&M only beat Florida because they're missing all these players. Now, Texas A&M beat you because Dan Mullen was too busy worrying about the crowd noise or not paying attention to the game. Just wanted to get that off my chest. I don't think maybe Clemson would have won with Trevor Lawrence, maybe not. but that wasn't why they lost. They lost because Notre Dame played probably their best game I may have ever seen them play.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to tell you, we want to talk about quarterbacks being impressive. I was, at least for one night, sold on a guy named Ian Book.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way he was managing that game was unbelievable.
Yeah, I agree.
They did a great job, and I think they deserve every bit of this win. There's no asterisk around the win, all right? Sorry, Clemson fans. They beat you. They just did. You were still more talented than them. I would argue 10 times out of 10, you have a better coaching staff than them, and they just got you.
Yeah. Uiagalelei completed almost 70% of his passes for 439 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, threw the ball 44 times, no interceptions, 439 yards. You almost statistically can't do a whole lot better than that. Even if Trevor Lawrence had his best game ever, is he going to throw for more than 439 with no picks and 44 attempts?
Hard to imagine, isn't it?
Yeah, that looks like a Trevor Lawrence line to me. You know, maybe he completes 2 other passes. I don't know, but he's not going to do much better than that.
One quick here. Sid Irish, Alabama won a national championship in the 90s. That's a joke to you, apparently, but just want to let you know that.
Yeah, why? What is the comment there about Alabama in the 90s?
Apparently Alabama was a joke in the 90s.
Oh, okay.
Had a national title and I believe 2 or 3 SEC titles.
Yeah, they were not a joke. Now, if you're going to put them against the Nick Saban standard, that's another thing. But just to compare them against the other teams in the 90s, you can probably only come up with maybe 4 or 5 that had a better decade, even though there were a few rough spots. But if you put it all together, yeah, it was pretty stellar. Again, the entirety of the decade. It wasn't vintage Alabama. It wasn't the best decade, but as you state, let's see. I would say they won the SEC, of course, in 92. I went to the 94 SEC championship game in which they could have been playing in the national championship game that year, but they lost to Florida by 1 point when they were undefeated. I was at that game, covering that game. And then, as you well know, they played in the SEC title game in 96 and 99. And 99
was a good one.
Yeah, they won one of those 2 against Florida and then played in the Orange Bowl. So they won at least, I guess they must have won 3 and won, again, the national championship. Yeah. So
3 conference titles and a national championship in a decade.
Yeah. In a decade in which, I would guess there were 5 or 6 teams that we could, it would be difficult to debate had a better decade for sure. And then after that, there would be some others that would be debatable. But the decade was owned by Nebraska, and Florida had a really good decade, and Florida State, of course.
Florida State, yeah.
Ohio State's would have been a little choppy. Go ahead.
Here, just want to get your opinion. So, is the Big Ten still second best, or is the ACC might be taking over that?
Well, it's a reasonable question.
They got
Gump.
And this one does have an asterisk by it. They had Notre Dame.
Yeah. So, well, you know that I'm going to take a very common sense approach to this. If you just want me to go by eyeball test, I do think that there's indication that the Big Ten is down. because anytime the perceived best teams falter, then it's hard to imagine that Maryland and Indiana and Northwestern and Purdue and teams like that are as good as what we expected Penn State and Michigan to be. That's kind of hard to imagine. But I'm also going to give you the practical answer, and I fully believe in this, that without any non-conference games to evaluate these teams, they're all just beating each other anyway. So all this is telling us is that either the teams that we expected to be good in the Big Ten aren't good, but they're being replaced by other teams that we didn't expect to be any good that are good, or it's just really balanced or something.
I do think that people, like yourself, who are familiar enough with the sport, though, can watch these games and these teams, and even without the objective evidence, which would be them playing each other outside a conference, can watch the teams and how they function.
That's fair.
And get a pretty good idea of what teams are pretending to be good and what teams are actually good.
Yeah, and so what we saw on display last night, to your point, is that we saw, sure, we don't have a barometer for these teams outside the conference, but based on what we've watched for the last 5 or 6 years, we can rest assured that Clemson's one of the 5 best teams in America. There's no reason to believe that they're not. They've been proving it every year for the last 5 or 6 years, and this team should be just as good or roughly in that vicinity. And then instead of going to Notre Dame and wiping them out by 3 or 4 touchdowns, they got beat. And so, is there an equivalent in the Big Ten to that? Well, I can't prove it, but to your point, probably not. If Ohio State's Clemson, Clemson's Ohio State, is there a Notre Dame in the Big Ten? Well, there has been typically, but it doesn't appear as though that team exists this year, unless it's Wisconsin, which we haven't seen them play. Really, they played one game,
them, right?
but it's probably not.
Because I hate to say this, but is there a Miami in the Big Ten?
Oh, there are Miamis in the Big Ten. Yeah, I'm not elevating Miami above everybody else in the Big Ten. No, I am not gonna. No.
Okay, I thought I'd just see where you were with that one.
Notre Dame, yes, based on that performance, yes.
All right, so I'll go ahead and get off here, see if there's anyone else. I'm just going to go ahead and give my playoff prediction. Now, I've got a pretty good idea where this is all going.
Okay. All right.
I guess technically halfway through the season.
All right.
So, because of and this was all dependent on the result last night, which is why I'm giving it now. I predict Alabama to beat Florida. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I think we'll win by 10 or 13. I predict us staying at number 1. I see Ohio State finishing at number 2. Clemson at number 3. After they beat Notre Dame, we will be at number 4.
Okay. So, all right. So you believe that Clemson wins a rematch against Notre Dame, and the selection committee favors Notre Dame over any other team in the country that has won a conference. Okay.
Yep. I think beating Clemson like that will earn them enough credit to get the nod over a 7-0 Oregon or a 9-1 Texas A&M. So,
and Oklahoma.
I think Texas A&M had a chance until Notre Dame won that game last night.
Okay.
And now, as long as everyone just holds true to their path, and by that I mean win every game on their schedule until the championships, in Notre Dame's case, then I think that's your playoff right there.
And Oklahoma State's going to trip up at some point, or they're just going to be not given the same credit.
I don't need them to trip up. No, they won't be given the same. Their loss will be a lot worse than Notre Dame's loss, and they won't even have a comparable win, even if they win the rest of their games.
So Notre Dame's,
and they just
yep.
don't. A Notre Dame team. I mean, let's be real. You know, between two college football historians here, if a Notre Dame team is even in the conversation, and they're being compared to the likes of Oklahoma State, or Oregon, the media, selection committee, all these people are going to make sure Notre Dame's in that playoff. And they can justify it. They have the best win in college football on their schedule, even if they lose one game at the end. If not only can they justify it, but they get a chance to have Notre Dame in the playoffs, they're going to put them in the playoffs. I'm absolutely confident on that.
I will only put one condition on that, and that is a respectable loss in the ACC championship game.
Okay, so you're saying they can't get blown out?
I don't think they go to the ACC championship game and win and lose 38-10, and Oklahoma State wins the Big 12 with one loss. That Notre Dame's still going to make a playoff.
Okay.
Texas A&M needed to lose close to Alabama. That doesn't look good either, because that would get compared against Notre Dame's blowout loss to Clemson, and that it still doesn't hold up because Texas A&M didn't have the opportunity to show that they could beat Alabama. They just got blown out by them once, plus they didn't make a conference championship game to play an extra game. So yeah, A&M's in a tough spot. You're right. I'm looking at Notre Dame's schedule. So they don't have that one game where you would say, okay, they're going to get challenged here. They've got to go play this team or that team. But there's two capable teams that they play the next 2 weeks in Boston College and North Carolina that could, on a given day, throw a scare in them. And then the last two are gimmies against Syracuse and Wake Forest. So yeah,
hey, I love that playoff. By the way, I think everyone would love to see the rematch between Clemson and Ohio State, Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, and everyone, of course, everyone who's anyone is going to pay top dollar to see Alabama and Notre Dame on the same field.
Yeah.
So, which is why I still to this day can't believe that they didn't match us in that a couple of years ago. Anyway, yeah, if what I think is going to happen does happen, I will be very, very excited for this playoff.
Yeah, it works out in a number of ways. That you've got four huge name brands. You've got with Notre Dame substantiating their ability against Clemson. You don't have one of these situations like we did last year where we knew one team didn't belong. Now Notre Dame may still not belong, but at least they've given us indication that they may. So there you go. Yeah, that would be a good playoff.
I would certainly be more accepting of them in this one than last time. First of all, they played the same kind of schedule as everyone else, unlike last time. And second of all, this time they've proven that they can hang with the big boys, at least for one game. We'll see what happens in the ACC title. I'm a little more lenient on it than you. Even if they do lose 38-10, I still think that they're going to say, look, we actually did beat this team. We may have lost bad this, but that doesn't mean we're that bad. So what I'll admit is that would at least be a conversation. That would be a debate that everyone could have if they got blown out. It wouldn't be if they lost a close game in the ACC championship game. I don't think it's even remotely debatable at that point. I think you have your four teams. But by the way, this is all contingent on Notre Dame losing the game, and Clemson loses twice, and all bets are off at that point.
Now that would be interesting. I would like to see Clemson compared as a 2-loss team against a 1-loss A&M team that didn't make the conference championship game, or a 2-loss Florida team that did make the conference title game and only lost to Alabama by a field goal, or a 1-loss Big 12 champion, or an undefeated or 1-loss Pac-12 champion. That's where it could get messy and would be intriguing. That's actually the scenario I want. Now that I think about it.
Else on here, but let's see if you got anyone else on here that has their insight on it. I'll go and let you go now, and I'll talk to you later. All right.
Appreciate it. Have a good one. Reasonable Gump. Think of that for a second. Notre Dame goes to the ACC championship game and they lose. Do they go to the playoff as a close field goal, 1-score loser in a rematch in which they already proved that they could beat that team? Or Clemson loses 2 games. Do they still get to the playoff as a 2-loss team, comparing Clemson having played what we can at this point not necessarily say is a better schedule than the Big 12 champion, but had games in it that were much more difficult than the top of the Big 12 chain? Or a Pac-12 champion that only played 7 games. Let's say USC goes 7-0, or Oregon goes 7-0, and they're not overly impressive. Oregon goes 7-0, and Clemson's 9-2, and they play 2 drag-out classic games against Notre Dame. See, I'm still in the camp of earning the spot. So I go with the conference champion. I'm a conference championship guy. I figure, why do we have conferences? I like the NFL system. I do like the NFL system. I don't think it should be adopted to a T by college football, but a lot could be learned from professional sports in terms of having an objective playoff. And when I say playoff, I mean an actual playoff, not an invitational. George, we don't go to any other YouTube channels that don't say the Voice of College Football. Those are the only ones we're allowed to go to. They have to be Voice of College Football Miami, Voice of College Football Ohio State, or Mark Rogers TV, the Voice of College Football. Okay, Harpoon Bakery. Do you guys realize that Clemson has an 80% chance of winning the national championship with 1 loss, and that Notre Dame? Do you realize, Harpoon Bakery, that wherever you read that I could debunk their percentages if you would go back and if you could chart all the percentages that they've told us leading up to now in previous seasons? If you're looking at the Football Power Index. So Clemson has an 80% chance of winning the national championship with 1 loss. Wait a minute. Think about this for a second. Clemson has 1 loss. Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you right now that Clemson actually has a 100% chance of winning the national championship with 1 loss. Because if they finish the season with 1 loss, they're going to win the national championship, because that's the only place they can land. Because if they win the rest of their games, they're going to the playoff. And if they finish with 1 loss, they're the national champion. Okay. Also, let's consider that Clemson, are you telling us that they have an 80% chance of winning the national championship? Okay. Anyway, Notre Dame is a 30% chance, and they are undefeated. Okay. Again, these are there are so many flaws in wherever you're taking that. And again, I'm going to assume that it's the Football Power Index, which I could dispel 1,000 times over, because I've seen so many. Oh my goodness. I actually have a notepad right here that I'm writing on the other side of all these sheets in which I made my preseason predictions. Let's look at the Power Football Index for Florida State. Let's see what they had to say for Florida State. Oh, They had a 75% chance of beating Georgia Tech. Loss. They had a 73% chance of beating Miami. Loss. They had a 98% chance of beating Jacksonville State. Oh, they got that one right. Okay. They had a 27% chance of beating Notre Dame. They had a 63% chance of beating North Carolina, and they did. That was a fluke of flukes. They had a 38% chance of beating Louisville. They did not. They had an 80% chance this past weekend of beating Pitt. They did not. According to the Football Power Index, Florida State right now should be 5-2. Funny is that I believe they're 2-5. And I predicted Florida State to go 6-5, and I'm not going to be close to being right, but a lot more right than the Football Power Index that had Florida State going 8-3. Notre Dame. The Football Power Index had Notre Dame with a 17% chance of beating Clemson. And they're pretty much right on the mark with the rest of these games, I got to say, because Notre Dame's been a substantial favorite in all these games, so, and they've won them. So, Virginia Tech. Okay. Who's Virginia Tech? They've lost 3 games. Well, this past, here's a good one for you. Virginia Tech, to start the season, had a 94% chance of beating Liberty. Who won that game? Virginia Tech had a 94% chance of beating Liberty, according to the Football Power Index. They had a 77% chance of beating Wake. They lost that game, too. And they had a 57% chance of beating North Carolina, and they lost that game. Virginia Tech, actually, according to the Power Index, should be 6-1 right now. 3, 6, 7, 8. They must have missed a game in there. Anyway, they're supposed to have 1 loss. They have 3. And we could go on and on. Louisville was given an 83% chance of beating Miami. They lost. Yeah. And Miami, again, was given a 27% chance of beating Florida State, and they beat them by 6 touchdowns. All right. Let me see what else is going on here in the live chat. I want to remind everyone that the Super Chat is on. I want to remind everyone that 16-4 against the spread this week. 16-4. That's 80% against the spread. Join me on Patreon. These fine folks have, and I wasn't able to get everybody's name on the board, but these fine folks have. On Patreon, you get an exclusive live stream offer per request every week, 1 per week per request, exclusive live stream. You get a watch party. Had a watch party in the Miami, North Carolina State game. We had a big watch party for that game, and the Minnesota, Maryland the Friday night before. You get my predictions. You get an insider look. You'll have to find out what that means for 15 cents a day. All right. Anything else I need to get to? Texas A&M fan is having a big night talking to everybody here. People don't realize how good A&M is becoming. They base everything you know about A&M on past teams. I don't. Come on, people. A&M is ranked at number 5 in the poll, so obviously the people that Matt, yeah, those people don't really matter that much. Had a couple other questions I saw in here, and I jotted them down because people had like Jeff Lynn's ELO tour. What did you have to say? Something about De'Ara King, because I had made a statement that he was roughly the 10th best quarterback in the nation a few weeks ago. Now, let's not go crazy just because he had one enormous night. Yes, he had a very good night against North Carolina State. North Carolina State. Okay, I was very impressed with De'Ara King, and he threw the there is no question that Miami has worked on throwing the deep ball. He was like 6 of 29 or something crazy like that, throwing the ball in air over 20 yards. I'm sure some of those were dropped, but 6 for 29 the first 5 games. The last 2 games, Virginia 6 for 7, and whatever he finished against NC State, I don't care what the numbers say. He was phenomenal dropping the ball in the bucket. But that doesn't, just because he had a hot night against North Carolina State. And I know he's capable. I'm not saying when I say hot night that he just came out of nowhere and blew it up for one night. No, he's a capable, very fine college quarterback. Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence are better. Mac Jones is a better quarterback than De'Ara King. Sam Howell, I would take. But I think that's debatable. I think it's debatable that Phil Jerkovich would be better, but he's having a great season. Kyle Trask is better. Kellen Mond is similar. I had so many Miami fans commenting to me prior to the NC State game about De'Ara King's deficiencies. So let's not get too high and too low. He had a great game against NC State. He's a good quarterback. My evaluation of him has not changed much, except for I'm very impressed with he and the wide receiver, and I'm sure the offensive coordinator, Red Lashley, working on the deep ball. There's no question that they have focused on that in practice by the display they put on Friday night. But they weren't exactly playing a top-level defense. All right. Exactly, curveball. Exactly. So, Texas A&M fan, just again having a big time in the chat here, which is why we're here. Talk it up. Sid Irish says that Notre Dame didn't even play well. Yes, bus seat. BYU is not going to get in, nor should they get in. Their schedule was completely ravaged by COVID, and then they had to reconstruct it, and they did so with everything that they could possibly do with the schedule. But BYU's schedule is not good, and they played their best opponent on paper Friday night, and unfortunately, Boise State, first-string quarterback out, second-string quarterback, I believe, got hurt. I saw an injury during the game to Jack Sears, the former USC quarterback, and I believe he was the backup. Jeff Lynn asked about Liberty. How good is Liberty or something? Or I forget exactly what it was. I rolled past it, but I took notes. I take notes on your comments so I can get back to them. Liberty. Let's understand. Here's a stat for you. Before Saturday's game against Louisiana Tech or Virginia Tech, I jotted this down because I'm going to shoot a video on a number of teams. I'm going to do my stock market watch, and I put Liberty on there, and we're going to applaud and praise and cheer on Liberty. But their schedule before the Virginia Tech game, 5-32, and they barely beat most of those teams. They barely beat. So Liberty, I've got Liberty ranked at a certain place. They're not that good. Great win against Virginia Tech, monumental win. They were fortunate at the end, but they were in position to win the game. So they didn't. I'm not going to say they lucked into the win, but they were fortunate. But they put themselves in that position to win the game. And I guess I hit on all those questions I jotted down. Exploring with Ben. Last time Notre Dame had a shot at the national championship, they got blown out by Bama. Yes, they were in the BCS championship game. they played in the college football playoff as well in 2018. All right. Anything else from me? I believe we've hit the end of the line. Who's asking me this? Landon Lyons, do you think this Cincinnati team is better than the 2017 UCF team? That's an interesting question right there. I don't think they're as explosive on offense, but they're certainly holding teams down to less yardage and points than that team. That UCF team, they would trounce most teams, but they would also, if somebody hit a pulse, like a Memphis kind of school or South Florida, I think it was that UCF team that played South Florida. That was an epic conference championship game, like 51-41 or something like that. This Cincinnati team plays better defense than that UCF team. So I think it's an interesting point. Now that UCF team obviously showed how good they are by beating Auburn. I don't know if this Cincinnati team could beat an Auburn from 2017. I don't know that Cincinnati's much. They're apparently they've improved even from last year when they went 11-2. Because if we want to look at the two games of note last year against the Power Five, of course they drilled Boston College in the bowl game. Was that Boston College? Why do I think Boston College played Boise State in the game that got canceled because of weather? Didn't Cincinnati crush Boston College? That was their opponent in the bowl game last year, right? Like 35-7, 37-7. Somebody double check me on that. Why is that not? I'm mixing up the last two seasons. I think that was the year before Boston College played Boise State. So anyway, Cincinnati, I believe, pasted Boston College this last year, but they also played Ohio State and got annihilated. Okay. All right, folks, I think we've done quite a bit of good work here. Please subscribe to the channel. I am very encouraged by all the subscriptions we've had over the last week or so. We've had about 50 today. Please jump on board. And when you subscribe, then you hit the bell for the notifications, when we go live. Tomorrow, I've got a ton of videos that will come out. I better shoot them at some point. Also, check me out on Pigskin Pete's channel at noon Eastern time on Monday. I'll be on over at Pigskin Pete. We call it college football coast to coast every Monday at noon. I'm also going to have all sorts of information on audio podcasts that are coming your way, courtesy MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. 2 different audio podcasts. But please subscribe. Also, keep in mind that we need you. We need your help in so many ways. Any way that you can give it to us, please do. Because this is the venture, full-time, full throttle, all the time. Amazon, somebody noted that today, and thank you so much for whomever did that. I can't remember who that was, but it was so nice that they mentioned to shop Amazon. Grab that link in the description section of any video. Go to any video, grab the link in the description section. It should be near the top of the description section. It's going to say Amazon in bold letters. Grab that link. Join me on Patreon as well. And so what you do with the Amazon link is it's the same shopping experience as if you would just go to Amazon.com, but you spend your $100, I get blank. I would tell you exactly what I would get, but it depends on what you buy. If you buy electronics, it's something. If you buy this, you buy that. It depends on what you buy. Maybe I get 1%, maybe I get 3%, whatever it is. And it doesn't cost you any more. Doesn't cost you anything additional. And then also Patreon. Join us on Patreon. My goodness, where's the link? Where's the link? Where's the link? 16-4 against the spread. We have watch parties. We've got exclusive live streams where you can come on and talk to me directly and other college football fans. You also get the insider look to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, and a whole lot beyond that. If any of you want me to do a specific team-specific live stream each and every week, like we do with Ohio State, Florida State, Miami, and now Nebraska, we added Nebraska. Why? Because somebody came to me and said, Mark, please do a Nebraska live stream. And I said, well, this is my full-time job. This is the business. I've got to make money now. Before, I wanted to make money, but I was working somewhere else for 45 or 50 hours a week. So I was building out the business, trying to, but focused a little too much on just talking to you. Now I got to be focused on building a business. So get me a sponsor, and you can do a Nebraska live stream. I will do the Nebraska live stream. You give me the sponsor. Guess what they did? Within 2 or 3 days, bam, sponsor. So we're doing a Nebraska live stream. If you want an Alabama live stream every week, if you want an Auburn live stream every week, Michigan State, Purdue, I don't care who it is. We will keep adding them as long as you can get us a sponsor. We need to be able to support the operation. Right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. It's all so much appreciated from all of you. Cheryl could call sometime. She absolutely could. We need some Texas Longhorn insight. Well, we get that from Steve Helwick. And I would love to do a Texas show each and every week. Jeff Lynn, so Mark, I like facts. King is a top 10 quarterback as of now. Well, I generally put him in that place. I did. It was against Memphis. You're talking about UCF's conference championship game. Yeah, in 2016, the year before, they played a really good one against South Florida as well when they were still good. Joseph Simeon, sorry. Thank you. Appreciate that. Everybody's great. And we're going to just go nuts with college football content as we typically do. So be looking out for that. Usually we release something first thing in the morning, which I'm going to have to struggle to do now because it's like 2 a.m. to get that ready for 5. But usually we release something every morning, first thing, and then around noon, and something around 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and then typically in the evening as well. Right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Again, Patreon. Ask these folks, talk to them, and ask them what they think. So join us on Patreon. Grab the link in the description section. Sign up right there. See you next time. Noon Eastern Time, Monday, Pigskin Pete.